me about your story as far as World War II. You were in D-Day?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that.
I was on the LSIL, which held 200 men. It wasn't a Higgins boat. And we broke rendezvous out there about 9 o'clock that morning and headed in right behind the Bedford boys. But when we got about 600 yards from the beach master called the skippers of the boats to take those men 2,000 yards down the beach to our left. We can't handle them. There's all kinds of equipment on the beach. There's dead men on the beach. And I just don't have room for them. There's still some of the live men here hadn't got off yet. So we had to go 2,000 yards down the beach. And we went in behind the 16th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Division. And my job was, I had 10 pounds of TNT on me. And my job was to blow the pillbox. And when I coming through the water, I saw that it had already been knocked out. The Navy got it. So it didn't take me long to defuse that 10 pounds of TNT and get rid of it. And then the lieutenant, I was the first scout for my company, for my platoon. And the lieutenant told me to lead us up the hill. So when I got there to where I turned left to go up the hill, the sergeant from B Company put his hand up there. I was just a PFC then, said, my platoon's going first. I had to listen to him. When they got 25 feet inland, where I would have been with some of our men, artillery shell came in. Took 5 of his men out, killed 2 of them, put 3 of them out of the war from then on. And I don't mind telling you, I just took my helmet off, looked up the sky, I said, good Lord, you get me through this mess, I'll be a good boy. So I must have been a good boy because I turned 90 a month ago.
I kind of tend to go like this.
You must have been really good.
Well, I'm up there. I'm almost there at that century mark, and I'm going to try to make it if I can.
Happy late birthday.
Thank you, man.
We're going to go later
on. And so we finally made it up to the top of the hill. I guess it was about maybe 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And a whole battalion of us went under this man. He was a sniper. He didn't shoot anybody. But when his S2 came up with all the maps, because we had to get back to where we were supposed to land, he shot him right through the head. After letting 1,100 and some men go underneath him. And that sort of made us mad, but he didn't live to tell about it. Because when he was coming down that tree, it just really carried on, and all kinds of bullets going around and all.
That's right.
So finally nighttime fell, so we sort of dug in right up there on the top of the beach. And about 11:30, one of their bed check Charlies, we call them, come by, got through it, and dropped a 500-pound bomb over in the next field. And happened to be in the same field that my colonel was. And he got hit by a fragment, and he died on the way to England while he was on the boat. And so we bunkered down for the night, having quite a few skirmishes. Now, you know, from the time we hit that beach until the war ended, 24/7, we never knew when the next bullet or the next artillery shell was going to get us. So about the 3rd night, we pulled a surprise night march and went inland about 5 miles. And when we got in there, we were so exhausted. But they posted the guards out, and we all just went in the field and went to sleep. If the Germans could have killed those guards, and they could have destroyed a whole battalion there. And then we had to cross the inundated where the Germans blew up a dam, and we had to go across there in the waist, up to our shoulders, wade across there about 200 feet. And that night it was just as cold as it could be, and our clothes and everything was wet, and it was one of the most miserable nights I had. I thought I was going to freeze to death. But anyhow, I lived through it, and the Lord continued to bless me. And we had battle after battle after battle. And we got into quite a few, 2 or 3 real bad ones. And finally one day they come up, we had our clothes on, put them on 27th of May now. And this was July the 1st. And they finally sent us back to the river to take a bath and give us new clothes. We stunk.
What's that, like a month and a half?
But we really felt good when we come out with those new clothes on. Then we got hit with a real serious attack one night, 12 o'clock. And they broke through C Company. And they got back in a little road where they had the CP. We had a whole squad of men back there taking off the line just to lay the rifle beside them and go to sleep. Well, the Germans got into that bunch and killed 12 of our men, right out, men that I trained with for a year or more and stuff like that. And so we finally got them pushed back, and while we were there, we had to stay there about 3 or 4 days. And the Germans had a machine gun zeroed in on the field. Anybody walked out in the field, they get mowed down. You had to walk beside the hedgerow. Well, this little short fella, I guess he thought he wasn't vulnerable. So he started to cross there, and machine gun got him, just cut the top of his head off. Went like that, and there we, for 2-3 days, go back to the little train and all. We had to see his brains laying out there on the field, because the cleanup crew couldn't get up there to get him. And then another real tall one come across right down through the middle of the field, and in one long bam, he took about 20 bullets from a machine gun, and anybody that went up there to try to get him, there would be a dead duck. So, we had to see him die because we had to keep fighting, So, then one time when my whole platoon went out on a patrol, and we were coming back in, by then I was a platoon sergeant. And the lieutenant leading the front, and I was on the back. Well, this 88 shell, if you hear it, it's too late. You can't get out of the way of it. And so this shell went over my shoulder, 2 men in front of me, and the 4th man, named Jim Headley from Alabama, took a direct hit from an 88 shell in the back. Biggest part of his body we could find was that part of the thigh. And by that time, we done got pretty well sort of mad, really wanted to fight. Sometimes we didn't want to because we just knew the odds were too much, but we had to. So we had been without a lieutenant for about a week. Finally, we got one, sent him up there to us. He come up and introduced himself, so I took him. I was a platoon sergeant then, and took him to the squad leaders and all the men, and then introduced him to them. And come back to our little CP. Well, he had his field jacket on with these gold bars shining up there, and this was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And those things were just sparkling, see them miles away. Well, when we got back to my little CP there, I looked at him. I said, "Now, Lieutenant, you don't have to listen to me, but I want to tell you something, and I hope you do." I said, "Take those bars off of your shoulder, off of that field jacket exposed, put them on your collar so that if you get captured, they'll know you're an officer." He looked at me and said, "Sergeant," says, "I earned these bars the hard way, and I'm going to wear them proudly." I said, "Okay, Lieutenant." I said, "I just wanted to tell you." 5 minutes later, guess what? Right through the head. He didn't even get to see 1 minute of combat, just because he wouldn't listen. So we had to go without a lieutenant for several more days. And the 1st Battalion was going to jump off one afternoon, so the colonel called us back about 1 o'clock, said, "I'll watch us for 2 o'clock. We're going to jump off at 2. And so the time come, and I sent my 2 scouts out because I didn't have an officer. And the boys got about halfway across the field and called back to Sergeant Hobbs, says, "We getting fire from our right-hand side." I said, "That can't be." I said, "That's C Company over there." He said, "Well, we are." I said, "Well, y'all hit the deck till I find out what's wrong." So I called C Company and got the captain. You know what he told me? It was 2:15, and his men hadn't jumped yet. Now, if the colonel had ever found, the battalion commander ever found that out, he would have got busted right there, because that was direct order. He just didn't listen to. So my boy had pulled a pin on the grenade. Well, when I told him to come back until we got reorganized, he put a pin in the grenade, but he didn't crimp it. You got to crimp them. When he rolled over the hedgerow to come back on our side, all of a sudden I had heard Sergeant Hobbs help me. And so I went and grabbed him, got him in my arms, but before I could even get his sulfidizing tablets. I had that little thing right there. That's what we carried in there. That's the only thing I had that would help us if we got hurt. He died in my arms. He was a little Polak boy from up in Connecticut named James Cosman. And to me, he was one of the bravest men I think. Little dumpy guy, but he was a good soldier.